Today we're making oxtails, and if you've never had them before, they are the exact part of a cow that you are thinking. They normally start off as long tubes of meat and they're cut off at the points where the bones aren't connected to each other. Here you've got the larger pieces, which is the base of the tail, and here you have the smaller pieces, which are the ends of the tail. The larger pieces obviously have more meat, and these pieces have more bone. That being said, it doesn't really matter where you're buying them. Oxtails generally come in the same price point, and at least in my butcher shop, it doesn't really matter which one you are buying. They both cost about the same per pound, and they're not cheap. This was $9.95 per pound, and this together is about 60 pounds worth of oxtails. 30 pounds, 30 pounds. Now, of course, each of these have their better uses. This has a lot of meat to eat, and this has a lot of bone and has a lot of collagen. And both are amazing in stews and stuff, but how you buy them generally differentiates on how you use them. These you'll end up buying like one oxtail per person because one person will eat all the meat from one oxtail. And here you'll just buy a bunch because you want to make a really rich broth or sauce. If you're cooking them on a stovetop, it's no less than 4 or 5 hours. Half that time in a pressure cooker, that's still not a little bit of time. In this case, we're gonna cook them sous vide, which takes 24 hours. Granted, most of this time is not active, but you need all of that time to really break down all of the collagen and the connective tissue and melt the fat and tenderize the really tough meat into something that is very flavorful, but also something that is pleasant to eat. Today I'm gonna cook them with this. This is Japanese curry, and you might remember it from that time that I decided to pour them on some tater tots. Japanese curry tastes amazing with beef, and I'm just curious to see whether or not this cheap and easy curry base will go well with such an extravagant ingredient. Although admittedly, the ingredient was not always extravagant. I remember when this stuff was like $3 a pound. Oh, God, I'm old. Anyways, because Japanese golden curry goes so well with beef, I just wanted to see how these two things interact. Will this cheapen this, or will this elevate this? I think it's the latter. Let's get started. Now, oxtails can be a rather gamey part of the cow, and that is not a pleasant aroma or flavor to everyone. I personally don't mind it, but it's something that I generally tone down to make sure that it is more accessible to everybody. There are different ways that you can go about doing this. Some people will wash their meat with lemon juice and vinegar, and that does a really good job in toning down the gaminess. I personally, when it comes to the bony parts, the bony tips of the oxtail, I like to parboil them in water with aniseed. Anywhere between 3 tablespoons to 1/4 cup. That might be the same amount, I'm not sure. 1/4 cup of aniseeds. That is definitely more than 3 tablespoons. Now, putting the smaller oxtails in this will do a few things. It will par-cook the oxtail, which we're not worried about because these things take forever to cook anyways, and it will remove that gamey odor, but at the same time, add in that anisey licoricey sweetness, which even if you don't like licorice, bear with me here because it doesn't really taste like that. Licorice, when it's applied to beef, just makes beef taste more umami, and you just have to trust me on that. You'll never know for sure unless you try it, and I suggest you do. Maybe you don't do it with oxtail or something as expensive, but just try mixing in star anise and anise flavors with beef and see how much richer of a flavor profile that gets you. I would say about 15 minutes at a rolling boil will be good. Discard everything but the oxtails after you're done. When it comes to larger oxtails, I like to do a basic sear before braising them or roasting them or however you cook them. But yeah, generally just a quick sear first, and that's enough to get you started. Now, you will find the curry to be the easy part of the recipe, and I promise you that is probably the only time you will ever hear anyone say that. Because if you've ever made curry from scratch, you know that it's a little bit of an ordeal. All this is just tearing up these little cubes and putting them into some boiling water. And once the cubes have broken down and have turned into a thickened sauce, then we move on to our next step. With the curry now finished, all that's left to do is to let it cool down enough that I can vac seal it, which I will speed up by just adding some ice cubes. and I will be vac sealing it along with the oxtails and then cooking the oxtails in the curry, in the bag, for 24 hours. You'll notice that I'm bagging the large and the small oxtails separately, and I'm just doing that to see if it does anything different to the curry as they both cook overnight. The curry has to be cold, not because I want to cook the oxtails any further. Remember, we're cooking these things for a long time. A few minutes under hot curry is not going to make any difference. But when it comes time to vac seal these, the pressure in the chamber of the vacuum seal will be so high that this will go absolutely crazy unless it has been cooled down. This thing is registering at room temperature right now, and I guarantee you the minute that I put it into my vac sealer, it's going to start boiling, even though it's not anywhere near at boiling temperature. There's already such a difference between the two different kinds of oxtails. That one smells aromatic and sweet because of the anise, and this one smells just like a bag of steak. And who's mad at that? Now let's get these things sealed. I personally don't know anyone who doesn't have an industrial vacuum sealer in their basement. And now we get to the fun part of our recipe, because what can be more fun than waiting 24 hours for food that you want to eat right now? Into your circulator at 167 degrees Fahrenheit for 24 hours. So here the oxtails will slow cook in their own sauce for 24 hours, where all of the collagen, the muscle fibers, and the fat will break down into super tender and super flavorful components. Even though this takes a really long time, this is my absolute favorite way to cook oxtails. So the oxtails will pretty much be ready for dinner tomorrow. But in the meantime, if you liked this recipe, you might want to check out this one in my book. It's one on Hong Kong borscht, and it is also an oxtail-based recipe. It takes about 5 hours on the stovetop, but you can cut that in half in an Instapot. And please do buy my cookbook, because I will have to put her through college soon, and she hasn't expressed an interest in theater, which means I will be taking care of her for the rest of my life. It is tomorrow now. Well, actually, it is today. Time is an illusion, and so is the value of money. So do not pay off your student loans. Actually, do pay them off, because they will kill you if you don't. It has been almost 24 hours since we put the oxtail in the sous vide, and now all that's left to do is just to take them out of the bag and plate, so let's just get to it. Now, when I eat oxtails, I like them to be steaky and not like slip off the bone, turn into mush. If I was making like an oxtail braised something or a stew or whatnot, I would probably want them to be a lot more loose. But since I'm eating them like this, I want it to be more intact and have just the tiniest bit of chew. Like, even the gristle or like the end piece, it should still just like be like an effortless chew, which I absolutely, oh god, I absolutely love this so much. That golden curry flavor, super beefy now, very punchy, but still like not spicy or mild. If you wanted spicy, add some chilies to this, add some dried chili pepper, maybe some cayenne, maybe some scotch bonnet, maybe some scorpion pepper, and it'll be a spicier dish. But otherwise, mild, mellow, and actually really perfect for something as strong tasting as oxtail. It is 100% like the kind of food that I like to eat. It's homey, it's comforting, highly recommend. Ooh, almost forgot. So, obviously I made, as you do when you make a curry, you make enough for like the week because you put so much work into it. So obviously eat some curry now. The curry's gonna taste better the longer that sits there. Oxtail is super fatty. There's a lot of fat in this. It's gonna be very rich at first, but the next day, if you have it in a container like this, that layer of fat is gonna cool off and form a cap at the top. You can just like take that right off. So once again, enjoy. I'm gonna eat the shit out of this.